Have you ever seen one of those military-style processions that nations like to use to shout about how powerful they are to the world? Columns of soldiers, sailors and airmen, resplendent in dress uniform, quick march to the sound of massed bands playing their soul-stirring music. National leaders stand proudly as the weapons of war trundle past. Power, glory, memorial and threat are all wrapped up in one breathtaking spectacle. These are the processions in which the ordinary is humbled by the great, made to feel small. The weak play no part. The broken are completely invisible and the lost are out of sight. There is no place in such a procession for the humble, or the homeless, or the hungry. No room for those struggling with addiction, no room for those who can't keep pace with the massed ranks around them, those who don't have the right clothes to wear, or whose physical pain reduces their walk to a shuffle. No room for those who are victims of tyranny. The refugee, desperate for a boat off the beach, has no voice here. Yet, beaches do play a part in another kind of procession. When I was a child, a summer holiday highlight was a donkey ride on the beach. 20 yards of slow plodding one way, to be rewarded with 20 yards slow plodding the other. Parents would gaze proudly at the children, clinging on for dear life, as the placid donkeys followed the lead of their handler-held halter. This was a procession of the loved. There were in these beach processions no massed bands or salutes, no high-peaked hats or lengthy speeches, just smiling parents, sandy children, and the slow growing of happy memories. The sunshine and ice cream kind that furnished yesterday's summer. Beach moments that put children first, propelled by love, smiling at and smiling. A welcome place of family delight. It was around 2,000 years ago now, when a procession of love took place that simply looked like a procession of the powerless. It was a procession where the ragged, the ordinary, the child and the vulnerable were welcome. It was all part of a love revolution that was about to sweep the world. There was a man the Roman authorities were to call the King of the Jews. The one the ordinary people called healer or teacher or storyteller or perhaps friend. Jesus. The religious authorities, and they did have authority in those days, considered him an unstable revolutionary, a subverter of truth, someone who messed with tradition, who ignored the boundaries that pinned people to their poverty and punctured the pomposity of entitlement with a well-chosen story or two. This was the kind of guy who stood up for his people, stood up for his place. And his people were all people, his place was all place. And he made sure that all were welcome, united by their common commitment to each other, loved people in a loved world. And Jesus rode not the white stallion so beloved of Roman power, but that donkey, that animal used for the bearing of burdens, a beach fairground ride for children like me, a braying beast. It was 1,000,000 miles away from those proud, militarily constructed processions of power, because the revolution that he was demonstrating was not about the strength of arms, it was about the power of love. This was the first Palm Sunday, and people grabbed anything they could to show their delight in him and the message that he lived. They waved palm branches, they shouted their joy, they flung their cloaks before him. They made their welcome clear, even as he welcomed each one of them. For this was the kingdom of God worked out. A kingdom where children matter. Children of all ethnicities, all tribes, all languages, children of all ages. This was the kingdom of God being worked out. A kingdom where the value of each person ensures the welcome of each person. This was the place where the hungry find good food, the place where the naked are clothed, the place where the ones trapped in darkness discover the light of love, the place where those whose chains make every breath a torturous struggle discover that the chains are broken. For love-soaked freedom beckons. And it's a freedom wrought in the place of procession, a freedom that was won forever, just a week after this first Palm Sunday, with another procession this time to a hill, to a rubbish tip, to a place they call the skull, the place where Jesus, the bringer of love, was crucified by the authorities that he had already overturned, a procession of love that was to overcome the world. Today, as I think on those events so long ago, I'm reminded of a lady I knew, now deceased, who wandered alcohol-soaked into a garden I was working on. It was a public, quiet garden. She saw me, apologised in a long, sprawling way and turned to go. I asked her to stay, because all are welcome in the kingdom of God in this procession of love. People struggling with addiction, especially so. She stayed. And while her addiction accompanied her to the grave, so did the sure knowledge that she is loved. She is welcome. And when religious authorities or worldly power shuts out such as her, why? What they're doing is shutting out that procession of the loved, the especially loved. For that revolution of love so wonderfully demonstrated on Palm Sunday included her. It includes the refugee child crying alone on a beach. It includes the ones too fearful to walk down their road because of the violence of others. It includes the person treated as not mattering because of the colour of their skin. It includes those whose faith is different to mine and different to yours. It includes the ones abused by the powerful. It includes the ones used by the strong and dismissed by the comfortable as extremists or exaggerators. This Palm Sunday procession was for such as these, each especially welcome, each especially cared for, each with a place on the back of that donkey clinging to the Lord of life as he makes his way through the jubilant crowd. But meanwhile, the ones who slam the doors on those he welcomes will look up and find that the door is locked, but they're on the outside, looking in. They will have excluded themselves, even as they excluded love. For this is a love procession, and it's those who know their need of that love who will always have a home here, for they are welcome especially.